Hey there, restaurant pros. It's David Scott Peters, and welcome to the Restaurant Prosperity Formula podcast. For over 2 decades, I've been guiding restaurant owners to success with the proven principles of something I call the Restaurant Prosperity Formula. I originally created the formula based on the daily practices of the most successful restaurateurs I coached, and it's now the foundation of what I teach restaurant owners like you so you can achieve success. What do I mean by success? Success is a restaurant owner who dictates the terms of their life and their bank account instead of the restaurants dictating those things for them. Success is a restaurant owner who has freedom from the restaurant and the financial freedom they never thought possible. How you define success is up to you, but I do know the way to achieving it is using the Restaurant Prosperity Formula. This season, I'm diving even deeper into the core elements of the formula: leadership, systems, training, accountability, and taking action. Along with my insights, you'll hear from special guests, industry experts, and inspiring success stories from fellow restaurant owners who've turned their businesses around and found their definition of success. In this episode, number 150, we're tackling why your restaurant still needs you for everything and what to do about it. Let's get started. But first, a word from our sponsor. Boost your restaurant's performance with the Service with Style's secret shopping program. Get comprehensive reports with photos, customized visit templates, a vast network of experienced shoppers, and a fantastic scoring system so you know exactly what your guests are experiencing. You control the frequency and rotation. No minimums, no contracts, no cancellation charges, and no hidden fees. Enjoy industry-leading reporting and scoring software, plus a 10% discount off the price, and your first shop is free. Set up a quick call today at www.servicewithstyle.com/DSP. There's a question I want you to sit with for a second. If you disappeared from your restaurant for 7 days, no phone calls, no texts, no jumping in, no saving the day, would the business keep running the way it's supposed to? Not would the door stay open, not would people still show up for work. I mean, would it run the way you expect it to run? Would the guest experience stay consistent? Would the food go out right? Would the cash controls happen? Would the schedules get managed? Would problems get solved? Would standards hold? Or would the whole damn thing start wobbling the second you were out of reach? That question matters because a whole lot of restaurant pros are telling themselves a lie. They say, one day I'm going to step back. They say, once I find the right manager, things will get easier. They say, once we go through the busy season, then I'll work on the business. No, that's not a plan. That's a bedtime story you tell yourself so you can survive another week. And I get it. You're not lazy. You're not weak. You're not clueless. In fact, the reason you're stuck is often because you're capable. You care more. You move faster. You solve problems better than anyone else in the building. So every time something breaks, you step in. And that works. Until it doesn't. Because over time, your restaurant stops being a business and starts becoming an extension of your nervous system. Every answer runs through you. Every decision through you. Every standard depends on you. Every crisis ends with your name on it. That's not leadership. That's dependency, wearing a leadership costume. And today, I want to break that down. I want to show you why your restaurant still needs you for everything. Why that keeps happening even when you have managers, and what you have to do to fix it. Because this isn't really about working too many hours. That's the symptom. The real disease is that you've become the system. And a part of this is, as restaurant owners, we confuse being indispensable with being successful. I can tell you that when I grew up working for my mom, I watched my mother and my stepfather work 6-7 days a week, open to close. I was a latchkey kid as a Gen Xer. Back in the day, we had sub shops that would drop off food to my house for me, and my mom would pay weekly so that I had meals. Like, she was committed to our restaurant, doing anything and everything possible. She taught me a lesson that is completely asinine wrong. And that is, the more hours you put in, the harder you work, the more indispensable, the more valuable you are to the business. And it's bullshit wrong. But we fall into that trap. We think that effort equals success. And the more effort we put in, the more successful we're going to be. But the problem is, it means you're needed every second. Now, I get it. Sometimes feeling needed, that makes us feel important. But it's actually a trap. It's how you get stuck in the business and you can't see your way out. The problem usually starts innocently enough. You open a restaurant, or you take one over, or you inherit a mess, or you just do what needs to be done. You cover shifts, you fix schedule issues, you calm down an upset guest, you train people, you order products, you watch labor, you check invoices, you solve millions of tiny fires that pop up every day. At first, that hustle feels normal, necessary even. But then something sneaky happens. Instead of building systems, you build workarounds. Instead of training decision making, you become the decision maker. Instead of documenting standards, you repeat yourself. Instead of building leaders, you become the hero. And heroes are great in the movies. In restaurants, heroes are expensive. Heroes burn out. Heroes create weak teams. Heroes accidentally teach everybody around them. Don't worry too much. Because you, the owner, will handle it. That's the trap. The more often you save the day, the less your team learns how to function without you. And this is the part a lot of people don't want to hear. Your team may not be underperforming only because they're weak. They may be underperforming because the system you created trained them to wait for you. That stings a little, doesn't it? Good, it should. Because once you understand that, you can fix it. Now let's go after the first lie restaurant pros tell themselves when they're stuck in this cycle. That first lie is this: I just need better people. No, you probably need better systems. Now let me be clear. Talent matters, hiring matters, values matter. I'm not pretending that warm bodies solve problems. Bad hires can absolutely wreck your culture. But most restaurant pros use this "I need better people" as a way to avoid the harder truth. Even good people fail in bad systems. Let me say that again. Even good people fail in bad systems. If the opening manager has to guess what ready for service means, that's not a people problem. If the kitchen closes differently depending on who's on that night, that's not a people problem. If one bartender rings everything up correctly and another comps like they're Oprah giving away cars, that's not a people problem. That's a systems problem. People cannot consistently execute what has never been clearly defined. And yet, restaurant pros do this all the time. They say, well, they should know. Based on what? Your facial expressions? Telepathy? Vibes? Come on. You cannot train a standard that only exists in your head. You cannot hold people accountable to a rule you never clearly documented. You cannot delegate a feeling. That's the first principle's truth right there. If you want consistency, standards must live outside your brain. That means written systems, checklists, processes, recipes, opening duties, closing duties, shift change procedures, cash handling procedures, prep pars, cleaning standards, manager walkthroughs. Boring? Maybe. Powerful? Absolutely. Because the minute standards move from your head to paper, your restaurant starts becoming trainable. And if it's trainable, it can be repeatable. And if it becomes repeatable, it stops depending on your memory, your mood, and your availability. You cannot delegate a feeling. Think about it this way. If you operate in a world where it says, hey, you need to clean the bathroom right, what does that mean? Think about it. Have you seen what some of your employees' apartments look like, what they think clean is? They leave it to that level of clean, that there's garbage that is about 80% full in the garbage pail. You see it, it looks awful, but to them, it's not full. You see a mirror that has water spots all over it. They see something that, well, doesn't need to be cleaned yet. You see a faucet with dried water spots. They see something doesn't need to be clean yet. You see standing water on the counter. They see nothing. You get the picture? You have got to have your standards laid out so they know what clean looks like. Think about it this way. What about making sure the line is ready? Well, if you depend on people to just know what's supposed to be done, one day the mise en place is wrong. By moving in a high volume pizza place, moving pepperoni from one spot to another can absolutely delay the living hell out of your line because people are now searching for where the pepperoni is. Or worse, they put the wrong ingredients on, not thinking about it because their hands naturally go to where the pepperoni lives, and they put out a bad product. Standards are not feelings. You have to define what right or ready means. That's crystal clear. So let's talk about something. Let's talk about, I guess, the first real solution, right? So point one, stop relying on memory and start building checklists. A lot of restaurant pros resist checklists because they think checklists are for amateurs, or they think checklists are micromanagement. That's nonsense. Checklists are not about treating adults like children. They're about creating consistency in a fast-paced environment where details matter. Pilots use checklists. Surgeons use checklists. High-performance operations use checklists. But somehow in restaurants, people act like a checklist is an insult. No, a checklist is respect for the standard. A checklist says this matters enough that we don't leave it to chance. Every key repeatable part of your restaurant should have a checklist attached to it. Opening the front of house, opening the kitchen, shift change, line checks, closing sidebar, cash outs, manage your daily duties, weekly maintenance schedules, cleaning standards, inventory routines, all checklists. And here's what people miss. The checklist is not a system by itself. It's the visible expression of the system. The checklist is how standards become actionable. Now, when I say checklist, I don't mean 14-page corporate manual nobody reads. That's not a system. That's a paperweight. I mean practical, clear, simple, in order, assigned, verifiable. Who does it? When do they do it? What does done look like? How do we know it got done? That's the game. Because when that exists, two beautiful things happen. First, your team stops guessing. Second, you stop being the walking reminder service. That changes everything. Suddenly, the standard no longer depends on who's working with you that day. It starts depending on what the restaurant requires every day. And that's the first step towards freedom. I want to talk about what I mean when we talk about checklists, because there are bad checklists, the way you design them, and they're useful checklists. Bad checklists are the ones that cause problems in restaurants all the time, that cause you to think, I have checklists, they don't work. The easiest example is what I just gave you just a moment ago, going, clean the bathroom. Bathroom, clean. What does clean look like? You have to be very specific and clear. If the waste pail is 50% full, it must be emptied and the bag replaced. Yes, I have to be that specific and clear. That the moment you walk in, we wipe down the counters, we wipe down all the faucets and the handles, and we make sure it is pristine and clean. If there are water spots, we grab Windex and paper towels and we clean it and make sure there are no smudges, no spots, no debris. You must be specific and clear. Things on checklists, tables angled properly. What the hell does that mean? I tell people all the time when I give presentations or I'm on coaching one-on-one or in groups, if you want the table 5 inches away from the frickin' wall, give them a gosh darn ruler. Be specific and clear. That's how they can be successful. That's how the checklist sets you up for success for the whole restaurant, that it's the same and consistent every single day. It's verifiable, it's trainable, it's repeatable. See, vague checklists create fake accountability because you feel like I gave them a checklist. But when they're so vague, and it requires common sense to know what to do, or memory, they will fail every single time. Maybe they get lucky once in a while, but when they have to figure it out on their own, they're going to cut corners and it's not going to get done properly. Now, once people hear that, they usually say, okay, I get it. We need systems. Okay, good. But that alone won't save you, because a restaurant full of checklists still falls apart if nobody is there to lead people, solve issues, and enforce standards. Which brings us to the second problem. A lot of restaurant pros have staff. Some have supervisors. Some even have managers by title. But very few have a true management layer. That's the second lie. I have managers, so why am I still doing everything? Because titles do not equal function. Just because somebody is called a manager does not mean they are managing. A lot of managers are really just messengers. They come to you with every issue, every question, every conflict, every decision. Can I comp this? What should I do about the cook who's late? Do you want me to cut labor? We're out of this product. What do you want me to do? This guest is upset. Can you come handle it? That's not management. That's dependency with a name tag. A real management layer means you have people who can think, decide, coach, correct, and follow through without running everything up the chain to you. That doesn't happen because you promoted someone. It happens because you train them to think differently and you stop rescuing them every time it gets uncomfortable. That's the hard part. Because if you've been answering all their questions for a long, long time, your team is conditioned to come to you. And if you like being the smartest person in the room, and let's be honest, a lot of restaurant pros do, then you've probably reinforced that behavior. They ask, you answer. They wait, you decide. They defer, you own the consequences. Round and round it goes. If you want to build leaders, you have to interrupt that cycle. Which brings us to point 2. Build your management layer. Building a management layer starts with role clarity. What is the manager actually responsible for? Not some fuzzy motivational sense. I mean specifically, what decisions should they make without you? What metrics are they accountable for? What standards do they own? What people issues should they handle first before escalating? What problems are theirs to solve? If that isn't clear, they will either overstep randomly or underperform safely. Most choose the second one. Why? Because waiting for your answer feels less risky than making the wrong call. So your job is to define the role and then coach decision-making inside that role. That means when a manager comes to you with a question, you stop instantly answering everything. Instead, you ask, what do you think we should do? What are our options? What does our standard say? What decisions would protect the guest and the business? That may slow things down at first. Good. Growth is slower than control. But over time, those questions force people to think. And thinking is what managers are paid for. Now, let me say something else that matters. You cannot complain that your managers don't think for themselves if you punish them every time they make a call you wouldn't have made. That's clown behavior. If you want leaders, you have to allow for learning, not recklessness, not repeated bad judgment, but learning. Because building a management layer is not about cloning yourself. It's about creating capable leaders who can execute your standards and make solid decisions in real time. That means training. That means coaching. That means reviewing decisions after the fact. That means letting people own outcomes. And yes, sometimes that means letting them struggle a little bit instead of jumping in like Batman every 10 minutes. See, owners accidentally create helpless managers by answering every gosh darn question. I can tell you all the time that when I have my 2-day seminar in Las Vegas, that I see owners all the time grab their phone and disappear from my room in the middle of me teaching something that can change their world because somebody didn't know where the plunger was. Something as simple as, where's the plunger? Why is your team texting you and asking without looking? Why don't you have a procedure? Why don't you have a training? Why don't you have a janitorial closet where there's a specific labeled shelf where the plunger goes? Instead, you've trained them that every question, no matter how dumb, no matter how small, no matter how simple, you are the Google of the restaurant. They don't need to think. All they need is, let me Google it. Hey, owner, where's the plunger? And all of a sudden, they're dependent on you. Nobody thinks because you know everything. Now, let me be very clear. I do want my managers to come to me with things that are out of their scope. I do want them to come to me when they're learning. But a part of that is this. I prescribe to having an open door policy. My managers can come in anytime and ask me a question. It's an open door. But they're not allowed to come to me with a problem. They have to come to me with a solution. And better yet, if they have 3 solutions. If, say, my broadline distributor showed up in the morning and we had an event that evening and there are supposed to be steaks and we don't serve steaks, but part of this event, we have steaks and they don't show up on the truck. The party's at night. That manager needs to run through the problem before coming to me. I do not want the manager to go, steaks weren't on the truck, what do you want me to do? And then I have to throw things down and get huffy and like, damn it, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself and take over and fix the problem. Isn't that what you do? Instead, when the manager walks in, hey, broadline distributor didn't have the steaks on the truck. I called our secondary purveyor. They can have them here at 4 o'clock. There will be about 25 cents a pound more. I could run to the broadline distributor. It'd probably be about a 3-hour turnaround to get it. But we've got to be open and prepared by 5. Or I go across the street and go to the butcher shop in the grocery store and get steaks. I think we should do the butcher shop. What would you like me to do? Well, holy crap. Right now, I have a manager who has thought through the problem, come up with solutions. I have the ability as the owner now to go, I like option number 1. Let's just keep you in the building. We're gonna keep working on it. Or maybe I've got a whole nother idea. Did you ever think about calling XYZ? Wow. Now we're having an interaction. I've got a manager who's solving problems, coming to me with solutions. That's what an open door policy looks like. That's what training your managers to think looks like. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Let's say you do the work. You build the checklist. You define the roles. You start training managers. You hand things off. A lot of restaurant pros think that's where the story ends. It's not. Because the third lie is this. I delegated it, so it should happen, right? Nope. Delegation without accountability is wishful thinking in nicer clothes. This is where restaurants slide backward. The owner says, I told them, or we went over it, or they know what to do. Okay. And is it happening consistently? Silence. Because hope is not a management system. You do not get what you expect. You get what you inspect. And that brings us to point 3. Inspect what you expect. This is the part people skip because it feels annoying. They're tired. They're busy. They want relief. So they hand something off and pray it sticks. But systems only work when they're inspected, reinforced, and corrected. That doesn't mean hovering over everybody like an anxious raccoon. It means you create a rhythm of accountability. The checklists get reviewed. The line check gets verified. The closing duties get signed off. The manager walkthrough happens. The numbers are reviewed. The one-on-one meeting takes place. The issues are discussed. The follow-up happens. That rhythm matters because consistency is not created by intention. It's created by repetition plus accountability. And here's the beautiful part. Inspection is not punishment. Inspection is communication. It tells the team, this matters. We mean it. The standard is real. You'll be supported and you will be held accountable. Without that, the system becomes optional. And optional systems are dead systems. The best operators don't inspect because they distrust people. They inspect because they understand human nature. Everybody drifts. Standards erode. Shortcuts creep in. Urgency replaces discipline. So you install inspection rhythms to keep the machine tuned up. Daily, weekly, period by period. Not because you're paranoid, because you're serious. Now let me be very clear. Inspecting your systems, putting accountability, is not about micromanagement. Now, most managers think micromanagement is you checking in on them. That's not true. Micromanagement is just give it to me, I'll do it. That you are so in control that when you see them make a mistake, you take it over and you do it anyway. That's micromanagement. See, there is follow-up in delegation. There are milestones that I'm checking in to ensure you're doing well, that it is my job to never let you fail. If I see you falter in the task, I can help retrain you. I can help you find a solution. I can help you be successful and hit the deadline. So I will be checking in. But again, many managers think that's micromanagement. That is not. Me taking over is micromanagement. But here's the deal. There will be accountability. A part of those check-ins are to make sure you're on pace, that you're actually doing the job if you're the manager. Without accountability, without the tough conversations, without the corrections, without the attaboys, things don't get done. They get missed. And the moment there's no accountability to systems as simple as a key item tracker or waste tracker, which are two clipboard systems in a kitchen that I can put in place like that, and I often say they're the two hardest systems in the world to get used on a daily basis, because without a manager checking it on a daily basis, they go away. So accountability requires you to inspect what you expect. Now let's connect the dots. Why does your restaurant still need you for everything? Because standards live in your head, because managers rely on you instead of leading, because delegated tasks are not being inspected consistently. That's it. Not all of it, obviously. Restaurants are messy. Life is messy. People are messy. But if you fix those three things, the whole business starts to behave differently. Let's go one layer deeper, because this is really about identity. A lot of restaurant pros secretly believe that if they stop doing everything, they'll lose control. In a weird way, they're right. You will lose one kind of control. You will lose the control that comes from being involved in every decision, every fire, every task, every fix. Good. That kind of control is garbage. It feels powerful, but it chains you to the business. What you gain instead is something better. Operational control, real control, the kind that comes from systems, structure, leadership, training, and accountability. That's how you create a restaurant that performs, not just one that reacts. And let me tell you what happens when that shift starts. You stop getting dragged into every tiny issue. Your managers start coming to you with solutions instead of problems. Your team gets clearer on expectations. The guest experience gets more consistent. The business becomes less emotional and more intentional. And for the first time in a long time, you can breathe without feeling like the place is going to burn down because you took an afternoon off. That's what restaurant prosperity looks like. Not sitting on a beach doing nothing. Not pretending the business runs itself by magic. It means you have built a business that can function because the standards are real, the people are trained, and the accountability is baked in. That is freedom. Not absence, freedom. Now, here's the distinction I want to make between abandoning your business and leading the business. See, I often tell my members, restaurant owners just like you, that when we're on a call, my job in life is to fire you. They're like, wait, what am I supposed to do? If you fire me, and what do I mean by fire them? I don't want them scheduled. I don't want them to be the best server, host, bus, or food runner at the same time. I don't want them to be the best line cook or prep cook they have. I don't want them to be the best manager they have and have to run shifts, be on the schedule, and ensure the process is working by being a manager. By no means. I want them working on budgets, leading the team, marketing, developing their managers, holding them accountable, working strategically on the business, moving the business forward as the leader of the big picture. In order to do that, I cannot be my best line employee. I cannot be my best manager. And oh, by the way, when I fire you, I don't care if you show up 7 days a week because that's how you're built. But at any point in time, you can leave. You want to go see your kids play? You leave. You're not on the schedule. You're not needed on the floor. You're not needed to do something. You're instead leading the business, and you can be there to ensure the process is working, to impose your will, to make sure your standards are met, to train, to do the things to make sure your business stays on track. But you don't have to be there. You can hug your chairs every single day because you love the place so much. But you can walk out the door knowing the restaurant will run your way when you're there, but especially when you're not. Look, you're not trying to disappear forever. You're trying to stop being the glue that holds the whole thing together. Now, I want to give you a practical way to think about where you are. Ask yourself these questions. If a key person quits tomorrow, do we have a documented process someone else can follow? If I'm not there to answer questions, do my managers know how to make decisions with clear boundaries? If a shift says something got done, do we have a way to verify it? If the answer to those questions is no, then your restaurant doesn't really have systems yet. It has memory, personality, and hustle. And hustle is not scalable. Hustle is useful for, in emergencies. Hustle is sometimes necessary in the beginning, but hustle is a terrible long-term business model. Because eventually hustle steals your margin, your time, your relationships, your health, and your ability to think strategically. You can't lead well when you're constantly recovering from operational chaos. You just can't. That's why this work matters. This is not just about getting one day off. This is about taking it isn't about taking a vacation. It's not about reducing your hours. This is about building a business worth owning. A business that gives back to you instead of consistently taking. A business where your value shifts from doing everything to leading everything. That is a completely different game. And the beautiful part of this is you do not have to fix everything at once. That's where a lot of people screw this up. They get inspired. Then they try to overhaul the whole restaurant in a weekend. They create binders, hold meetings, throw around a bunch of new language, and then everybody gets overwhelmed and nothing sticks. Don't do that. Start with the one critical area. One. Opening procedures, closing procedures, shift accountability, manager role clarity, daily checklists, pre-shift systems. Pick the pain point that causes the most chaos and start there. Document it, train it, inspect it, refine it. Then do the next one. This is how momentum is built. Not by trying to become a different business overnight, but by installing one reliable standard at a time. And I want to be very, very clear. I suck, I create work. I get it. You start with the first system, it goes on to the next system, and so on. We just keep moving down the list. And you know what? You want it done overnight. You already feel the stress and the crises that go on, and you want to spend time with your family, and you want to regenerate, and sit in a corner and so I'm refreshed, I'm ready to come back, I'm motivated. You want all those things for yourself. I get it. So what do? You try and take it all on at the same time. I'm telling you right now, you cannot. We put something in place, we train it. We make sure it's in place. That's the accountability piece. We make sure it's a part of how we operate on a daily basis. Then we add the next thing. See, progress beats perfection. I don't need a perfect process. I don't need a perfect restaurant. When I put out that first checklist and it ain't perfect, I work on it and I make it better. And when it's still not perfect, great, I work on it, I make it better. When I put in that cash control system and there's still a gap, I improve it. When I find a new gap, I improve it. We're not working for perfection. Perfection stalls all progress. There is no such thing as perfect to start off with. So let's make sure we take one step See it all the way through. Take the next step. See it all the way through. Make sure it becomes a part of how we operate. This is our SOP, standard operating procedure, and everybody knows it. It's clear, and you're held accountable to that standard. Then we move on. See, systems are built in layers, not in one fell swoop. So if you've been telling yourself, my restaurant can't run without me because nobody cares like I do, maybe that's partly true. But that's not the full truth. The fuller truth is this. Your restaurant can't run without you because you haven't finished building the infrastructure that allows it to. That's actually good news. Why? Because infrastructure can be built. Systems can be documented. Managers can be trained. Accountability can be installed. This is solvable. That's the part I want you to hear. You are not doomed to be an operator, the manager, the firefighter, or forever the babysitter. But you do have to stop worshiping effort and start building structure. That's the move. That's how you stop being the system. And when you stop being the system, your restaurant finally has a chance to become a real business. That's the work. And it's worth it. If this episode hit home for you, then your next step is simple. Identify one part of your restaurant that still depends on you too much and start documenting it. Not someday, now. Because clarity is the first brick in the foundation. And once you can see the gaps, you can fix the gaps. That's how restaurant prosperity starts. Ready to take the next step towards achieving restaurant prosperity, freedom from the daily grind, and the financial success you deserve? Book a discovery call with Ryan James to learn about our group coaching program. Ryan will guide you through how our program can transform your restaurant and help you achieve the prosperity and freedom you've been striving for. Click the link in the description below or visit dsp.coach/talk-to-Ryan to schedule your call now.